Did you know that there is a war that happened before Adam's creation? Such a violent and decisive battle that its echoes still reverberate through the spiritual dimensions to this day. A war that 99% of pastors never mentioned in their pulpits, because the details were deliberately erased from the mainstream Christian history. I'm talking about Miguel, the Archangel, but not about the sanitized version you learned at Sunday school. I am talking about Miguel Real, the warrior prince who faced not only Lucifer, but two entities so powerful and terrifying that the ancients knew them only as the Dark Twins. In the next 30 minutes, we will dive into recent archaeological discoveries of Qumran, apocryphal manuscripts that the early church knew but chose not canonize, and rabbinic traditions that preserved explosive details about this heavenly war. Let's look at Hebrew and Greek texts that reveal layers of meaning completely lost in modern translations. Dr. Michael Heiser, a renowned Old Testament scholar, has spent decades annexing these traditions. The late Dr. Margaret Barker, one of the greatest authorities in Jewish apocalyptic literature, dedicated his career to rebuilding this lost cosmology. And archaeologists like Dr. Eilat Mazar have discovered physical evidence that corroborate these ancient traditions. Here is what you are about to find out. First, I will show you a 2019 archaeological discovery that confirms specific details about the angelic hierarchy that biblical critics said to be later Jewish mythology. This will shake your convictions about what is canonical and what is tradition. Then let's dive into the original texts of Daniel 10, where Miguel is mentioned, and you will find that the word prince there does not mean what you think. The Hebrew term sar reveals a specific military function that completely changes our understanding of Miguel's power. Next, I will reveal you why Judas verse 9 mentions a specific dispute between Miguel and the devil over the body of Moses, and how it connects directly with the Dark Twins and a cosmic conspiracy that few understand. And in the end, you will have a completely new perspective on the spiritual battle that happens around you right now, and as Miguel is still fighting for you in ways that will leave you speechless. But before we get there, I need to tell you about 3 specific revelations that I will only explain completely later. First revelation: why the Dark Twins have never been completely destroyed in the first heavenly war, and where they are now. Second revelation: what really happened when Miguel played with the devil about the body of Moses, and why it is all about you. Third revelation: how can you invoke Miguel's specific protection using a prayer that early Christians knew but was lost for 1,500 years? This information can transform your faith today. It is not just academic knowledge, it is spiritual weaponry. It is understanding that can change the way you pray, how you fight darkness, and how you understand the power that is available to you as a child of God. We live in a time where dark forces are more active than ever. Depression, anxiety, spiritual attacks, families being destroyed. Do you think this is coincidence? The Dark Twins never stopped working. They just changed strategy. But to understand this completely, we need to go back in time, a long time. We need to transport ourselves to a moment before the foundation of the world, when the throne of God was being challenged, and Miguel received an order that would change the fate of all creation. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine with me. Imagine not on the dusty streets of Jerusalem or the Galilee hills, but in heavenly courts before time begins to exist. There is no sound here as we know. There are harmonies that transcend. Music, frequencies that are pure worship. The air, if we can call it, pulsate with tangible glory, and each movement of the heavenly beings creates waves of light that dance through dimensions that our mind cannot conceive. But there is tension in this paradise, a tension that makes its own space vibrate with dangerous expectation. In the crystal and gold corridors of the heavens, whispers of rebellion echo like distant thunder. Angels who once sang in perfect unison now exchange glances loaded with doubt and questioning. The smell here, if we can translate heavenly sensations. To our limited understanding, it is of burning incense, but also something more ... Metalism, such as air before a violent storm. There is war coming, and everyone knows. At the center of this growing tension is Miguel, not the delicate cherub of Renaissance paintings, but a warrior whose presence makes demons run away in terror. His name in Hebrew, Mi-Ka-El, is not just identification. It is a statement of war. Who is like God? Imagine responsibility for your heavenly shoulders. He is not just an angel among many. He is the supreme commander of God's armies, the executor of divine righteousness, the one who carries the sword that cuts between soul and spirit. And now, before him, it is not just the rebellion of Lucifer, but something darker and more complex. This is where we need to pause and look at what scriptures really reveal to us. In Daniel chapter 10, verse 13, we have one of the most intriguing passages in the entire Bible. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia resisted me for 21 days. But Miguel, one of the first princes, came to help me, and I stayed there with the kings of Persia. Did you hear this? One of the first princes. Not the only one, but one of the... This means that there is a hierarchy, a heavenly military structure that most Christians do not even think there is. But there is something in the original language that changes everything. The Hebrew word for first here is Rishon, which does not only mean first in order, but first in power, first in authority, first in battle force. Miguel is not just a powerful angel. He is the supreme commander of a heavenly military hierarchy so vast and organized that he would make the greatest armies of the earth look like a child's play. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Because if Miguel is one of the first princes, who are the others? And why does the Bible mention this so casually, as if expecting us to know who you are talking about? The answer will shock you. In the next block, I will show you as apocryphal texts and rabbinic traditions preserve the names and functions of the other first princes, and how two of them became the most dangerous opponents Miguel has ever faced. As we have seen, Miguel is one of the first princes, a supreme commander in a heavenly military hierarchy. But there are much deeper layers in this revelation that have been systematically removed from Christian teaching mainstream over the centuries. For Daniel's original hearing, Jews in Babylonian captivity, this heavenly military language was not strange. They lived in a world where each nation had their patron gods, their warrior divines who supposedly fought in spiritual kingdoms as physical battles occurred on earth. But what Daniel is revealing is infinitely more sophisticated. He is showing that there is a true heavenly hierarchy, where specific angels have specific jurisdictions, specific authorities, but specific enemies. In Mesopotamian cosmology, which Jews knew intimately, there were stories of divine twins who represented opposite forces of chaos and order. The Babylonians spoke of Marduk fighting Tiamat and his allies, a primordial battle that established the cosmic order. Here is where it is fascinating. The word Daniel uses for prince, sar in Hebrew, is not just political leader. It is specifically a military term meaning commander of armies, supreme general, the one who leads in battle. When Daniel says the prince of Persia, he is not talking about Cyrus or Dario. He is talking about a spiritual entity that had demonic authority about that territory. And when he mentions Miguel as one of the first princes, he is putting Miguel in the same category of power, but on God's side. Different translations try to soften this. The King James Version speaks of chief princes, the New International Version uses one of the main princes, but all lose the specific military nuance of the original. This leads us directly to other passages that suddenly make sense. In Judas, verse 9, but the Archangel Michael, when he contended with the devil and disputed about the body of Moses, did not dare to pronounce judgment of the curse against him. Why was Miguel playing on the body of Moses? The Greek word diakrino here means fight, crash legal battle. It was not a theological discussion, it was war. And in Revelation 12:7, and there was battle in heaven. Michael and his angels struggled against the dragon, and struggled the dragon and his angels. The word battle here is polemos, total war, military campaign, not just isolated conflict. Some conservative scholars argue that these references are only poetic metaphors, that we should not literally bring the descriptions of spiritual war. They claim that creating a detailed angelic mythology goes beyond what canonized deed allows us to know, and they have valid points. We need to be careful not to speculate beyond what is revealed. But there is a third interpretation that few know, an interpretation that connects ancient rabbinic traditions, Qumran manuscripts, and recent archaeological evidence in a way that will leave you speechless. And this interpretation explains one of the greatest mysteries of the Bible, why God allowed the rebellion to happen in heaven first. And as Miguel faced not only Lucifer, but two other entities that represented an even greater threat to the cosmic order. Now let's go together to unravel this mystery. Take your Bibles, open your minds, and prepare for an investigation that will lead you through forgotten manuscripts, surprising archaeological discoveries, and traditions that have been deliberately suppressed. Here's the puzzle that has confused scholars for centuries. If God is omniscient and almighty, why did he allow the rebellion to happen in heaven? Why didn't you prevent Lucifer even before he even began to question? And most importantly, why does the Bible speak of Miguel fighting multiple opponents if Lucifer was supposedly the only rebel? What is really at stake here is not just the history of the fall, it is the very nature of free will, divine justice, and the plan of redemption since before the foundation of the world. The first track is hidden in the book of Enoch, a text that Judas quotes directly in his epistle. In chapter 20, Enoch lists the names of the watched holy, and among them are two names we rarely hear, Raguel and Sariel. But in later chapters, we found that these two watchmen corrupted themselves and became leaders of the rebellion, along with Lucifer. The second evidence comes from an unexpected source, Qumran, manuscripts discovered in 1947. The 4Q201 fragment specifically contains an Aramaic version of the Book of Enoch that preserves details about the two preceding the great apostasy, two entities that corrupted other angels even before Lucifer began its open rebellion. The third track is the one that changes everything, an archaeological discovery of 2019 in Tel Azeka, where oysters were found, ceramic fragments with writing that mention invocations to Miguel, the winner of the two dark princes. This discovery proves that the Jews of the Second Temple period knew this tradition and considered it important, enough to be preserved in protective rituals. The traditional Catholic perspective has always recognized complex angelic hierarchies through the works of Pseudo-Dionysio, but has avoided speculating on specific fallen angels beyond Lucifer. The Reformed Protestant view usually rejects extra-biblical literature and focuses only on what is explicitly stated in canonical scripture. East Orthodox interpretation has preserved more ancient traditions about specific angels and their functions, including Miguel, directed protection prayers against twin adversaries. The findings of modern archaeology are forcing all these traditions to reconsider what we really know about the cosmology of Judaism of the Second Temple. Here is the revelation that will change your perspective. The dark twins were not just ordinary rebel angels. According to the preserved traditions, they were the architects of the rebellion, the strategists who convinced Lucifer that a revolt against God was possible and desirable. while Lucifer was the public face of the rebellion, driven by pride and vanity. The dark twins were the minds behind the operation, entities that understood the structure of the cosmos in a way that allowed them to almost overthrow the divine order. But wait, this raises an even greater question. If they were so powerful and strategic, why did Miguel be able to defeat them? What did they have they didn't? And most importantly, why were they never completely destroyed? The answer to this will shock you. It will explain why the spiritual battle you face today has specific characteristics. It will reveal why certain temptations are so systematic, so well planned, so perfectly adapted to their individual weaknesses. Remember the question we asked at the beginning? Why did God allow rebellion in heaven? Now we have the answer, and she will change everything you've thought about divine sovereignty, free will, and the purpose of spiritual battle. Here is the truth that remained hidden. God allowed the rebellion because it was necessary to establish once the legitimacy of his government. Dark twins, identified in traditions such as Raguel, Avenger of God, Corrupted, and Sariel. God's command, perverted, represented the last test of the cosmic system. They were not just rebels, they were corrupted auditors. Angels who originally had the function of testing the loyalty and obedience of other heavenly beings, but who were corrupted and began to use this privileged access to sow doubt and rebellion. Archaeology confirms this. Telezakas Ostrakas not only mention Miguel by defeating 2 princes of darkness, but specifically they call him the one who proved justice, a phrase that only makes sense if we understand that battle was not only about power, but about moral legitimacy. Parallel texts of the Nag Hammadi library contain fragments that speak of the 2 who questioned the right, a clear reference to entities that challenged not the power of God, but their right to rule. The consensus between scholars, such as Margaret Barker and Michael Heiser, is that the Second Temple's Judaism has preserved memories of a much more complex cosmology than to us through official channels. This means that the war that Miguel fought was not just a military, it was cool. He not only defeated the dark twins in combat, he proved before all creation that God's government is righteous, that his authority is legitimate, and that obedience to him is not tyranny, but perfect order. Each scam in Miguel's sword was an argument. Each victory was a demonstration that chaos cannot prevail over the divine order. Every moment of the battle was a defense of cosmic justice. This reveals something deep about God's character. He does not rule by brute force, but by absolute moral legitimacy. And Miguel, whose name is a question, who is like God? It has become the living answer. No one is like God in justice, power, and the right to rule. This means that everything we thought about the spiritual battle was incomplete. It is not just a struggle between good and evil. It is a continuous demonstration of the legitimacy of the divine government. Each time you resist temptation, you are voting for God's righteousness. Each time you choose obedience, you are declaring that God has the right to be God. But the question that doesn't want to silence is, what does this mean to us today? If Miguel is still fighting this cosmic legal battle, where do you fit? What is your role in this war that is not only spiritual, but legal? Prepare your heart for what comes next, because you are about to find out that every fight you face, every temptation you resist, every prayer you say is directly connected with the battle Michael fought in heaven. You are not just living your life, you are participating in the cosmic demonstration of divine justice. From eternity past to this exact moment when you are watching this video, from the cosmic battle to your daily struggle, from the throne of God to your heart, that you may be injured, tired, or wondering if it is worth keeping fighting. How many of you have already felt like Miguel, overwhelmed with a responsibility that seems greater than your strength? How many have looked at an impossible situation and wondered, why do I? Why do I have to face it? Miguel did not choose to be the supreme commander of heavenly armies. God chose him. And likewise, you have not chosen many of the battles you are facing now, but you were chosen to face them. Does that depression that seems too systematic to be coincidence? Do those anxiety attacks that arrive exactly when you are trying to get closer to God? That feeling that invisible forces are conspiracy against your marriage, your family, your ministry? You are right. It is no coincidence. In your relationships, just as Miguel faced opponents who were experts in corrupting communication and sowing distrust, you are facing specific attacks on your most important relationships. Dark twins were masters in sharing words, creating misunderstandings, and making people who love to fight about insignificant things. When you and your spouse fight for small things that explode disproportionately, when your children suddenly become rebellious without apparent reason, when decades friendships fall apart by misunderstandings, you are seeing the continuation of the strategy of the dark twins. In his financial challenges, Miguel fought against entities that attacked the provision and confidence in God's sovereignty. If you are facing financial problems that came out of nowhere, opportunities that closed at the last minute, or a constant feeling of scarcity, even when God has provided, understand that this is specific spiritual war. In matters of identity and purpose, dark twins were experts in making angels question their functions, their purposes, their identities towards God. If you are constantly questioning your value, your call, your place in the kingdom of God, you are under the same kind of attack they used in heaven. Are you making the same choice as rebel angels made? Not only questioning the circumstances, but God's own right to allow these circumstances to exist? In what area of your life do you need to apply Miguel's strategy? Where you need to stop trying to negotiate with the enemy and start declaring, "Who is like God? No one has the right to question your authority over my life." What lie have you believed that the revelation about Miguel destroys completely? The lie that you are alone? The lie that God doesn't care about his specific struggles? The lie that the enemy is more powerful than it seems? The Lord fits you, and you are silent. Exodus 14:14. Miguel is still fighting for you just as they fought in heaven. Greater is what is in you than what is in the world. 1 John 4:04. The same power that enabled Miguel to defeat the dark twins inhabits you. But there is an even deeper dimension of this application. A dimension that will change not only as you fight, but how you understand the eternal purpose of your specific struggles. Now let's go to the heart of the issue. You thought your struggles were just about you, but now you have found that you are part of a cosmic demonstration of God's righteousness. This changes everything about how you should face each temptation, every difficulty, every moment of choice. Consequences of ignoring this truth. When you do not understand that you are participating in the demonstration of God's legitimacy, you fight as if it were just about you. You despair faster, give up easier, and do not realize the eternal meaning of your faithfulness. Benefits of completely embracing this teaching. When you understand that your obedience in the midst of temptation is a vote in favor of divine justice. When you realize that your persistence in the midst of adversity is a statement that God has the right to be God in your life. You fight with Miguel's strength because you are fighting the same battle that Miguel fought. This week, I challenge you to do 3 specific things. First, every time you face a temptation before reacting, stop and declare, "This is an opportunity to vote for God's righteousness." Michael, help me demonstrate that God has the right to rule my life. You will be shocked by the strength that this perspective will give to resist. Second, identify an area where you have questioned not only circumstances, but God's right to allow these circumstances. It can be a disease, a financial problem, a difficult relationship. Stop negotiating with God and start declaring your legitimacy about that situation. Third, begin to pray specifically asking Miguel to protect the two who sow confusion. Against communication-specific attacks on their relationships. Against strategies that aim to corrupt their trust in God. Against temptations that are too elaborated to be coincidental. You may be thinking, but this is very difficult. How can I see eternal purpose in the midst of so much suffering? I understand this fight. Miguel must also have wondered why God did not simply destroy the rebels instantly, rather than allowing a prolonged war. I know some will question if this is really necessary, if it is not easier simply to deliver everything in the hands of God and not worry about spiritual war. But understand, deliver into God's hands includes actively participating in the demonstration of His righteousness. It is not passivity, it is conscious partnership with the eternal plan. Do not fear, because I am with you. Do not haunt yourself, because I am your God. I strengthen you and help you, and I support you with the right hand of my righteousness. Isaiah 41:10. The same right of justice who trained Miguel is available to you. In all these things we are more than winners by the one who loved us. Romans 8:37. You are not just surviving battles. You are winning with eternal purpose. Because our slight and momentary tribulation produces for us an eternal weight of very excellent glory. 2 Corinthians 4:17. Each victory in its spiritual battle has eternal weight in the demonstration of the glory of God. You are not alone on this journey. There are other warriors around the world who have understood this truth and are consciously fighting this cosmic battle. Every time you choose obedience, you are joining a chorus of voices that declared through the centuries, "Who is like God? No one." The time to act is now, not because God is impatient, but because every day you fight with this cosmic consciousness, you are participating in something eternal. Every day you advance this understanding, you are missing opportunities to give God glory in a way that angels themselves want to witness. Let me tie it all with a final truth that will forever change the way you see your life, your struggles, and your eternal purpose in God's plan. We started asking about a war that happened before man's creation. We found that Miguel faced not only Lucifer, but the dark twins, rebellion architects who questioned God's own right to rule. And now we know that this was not just a military battle, but a legal demonstration of divine legitimacy that continues today through you. Here is the final truth that will mark your soul. You are not just living a Christian life. You are serving as a living evidence that God has the right to be God. Each act of obedience, every moment of faithfulness, every choice to trust in the midst of adversity is a stone in the eternal monument of divine justice. The angels watch you. Demons tremble when you choose to obey. And God Himself rejoices because through you, the question, "Who is like God?" receives the answer, "No one." Don't let this video be just information. Your life may be different from today if you embrace this truth. You are a warrior in the cosmic demonstration of divine justice. Each day is an opportunity to vote for God. Each choice is a statement that it has the right to rule. If this discovery impacted your heart, has impacted mine, if you felt the spiritual reality behind these words, show it by enjoying this video. Your like is not just support, it is a statement that you understood the call to consciously participate in this cosmic battle. In the comments, tell you your experience. How will you apply this revelation about Miguel and the dark twins in your life? What was the insight that most marked you? I read all the comments and specifically pray for each person who shares their journey. And share this video with someone who needs to be remembered that their struggles have eternal meaning, who are not alone, and that are part of something infinitely larger than they imagined. Remember, your life is not just about you. It is about the eternal demonstration that God has the right to be God. Live as the cosmic warrior you are. Miguel fights by your side, and together you are more than winners. May the peace of God, who exceed all understanding, keep their hearts and minds in Christ Jesus, and that you fight with the awareness that every victory is an eternal statement. Who is like God? No one.